Hey guys, Mark Kwok here. As you guys know, watches are one of my favorite topics, and it seems like whenever I post a video about watches, it generally does better than a lot of my other videos. So you guys must love watches too. So today I want to talk about 5 types of watches that I think you will regret purchasing. So just a little history on me. I've been collecting watches for about 15 plus years at this point. And I've learned a lesson or two about the types of watches that I'm okay with and type of watches that end up being regrets. And so I'll create 2 videos. This is the first one here about regrets around buying watches. And the second one on what kind of watches to buy, the types of watches that you do not regret purchasing. So be on the lookout for that one next. Okay, so the first type of watch that you will regret purchasing is a watch that clearly doesn't fit. Usually this lands on the bigger side. I would say that if you're looking for watches and you're trying to choose whether to go bigger or smaller, I would err on the side of going smaller. And that's not just like these days. I'm talking about I've always generally thought this way. People can forgive a smaller watch, but they rarely, like over the long haul, forgive a watch that's just too big for a couple of reasons. One, it's actually uncomfortable. Like if it's like coming off of your arm and the lugs are hanging off and so on, it's just not a comfortable feeling. You kind of have to readjust. Also, you bang into things. Like if it's too thick, I've had watches that like I just constantly. So I would recommend trying to stay in a more quote unquote normal size. These days that would probably be between 36 and 42. And err on the side of being slightly smaller if so. An example would be I used to own a Rolex Sky Dweller, a 42 millimeter watch. I think it's like 14 millimeters thick. And I thought it looked pretty good on my wrist. Actually, I would, I have a 6.5 inch wrist and I'd be like, all right, you know what, this kind of works. But at the end of the day, man, like it just got heavy. Felt like I was gonna bang it on things. I actually did bang it on a couple things. And so I would recommend just making sure that you find a good one that fits your wrist well. The second watch that I would regret purchasing is a fake watch or like replicas. There are subreddits that are completely devoted to these replica watches and it's like, oh, it's super close to this Patek Philippe or it's very close to this Omega. And look, I get why people think about him as a good alternative because they don't want to get, stolen from or I don't know, like they just love the design, but they don't want to pay the full crazy price that luxury watches demand. I get all that, but when it comes to being proud of your collection, when it comes to being serious about watches, if you are, the fakes just don't, they just can't do it for you. I gotta tell you, it's just, it'll create a stain in your mind around the collection. You're just gonna look at it and be like, every now and again, it's like, am I representative of this fakeness? Like there's all these like psychological issues I think that come with any watch collection that has fake replicas in them. Trust me, I even purchased a Rolex Submariner, a fake one, for like 200 bucks, maybe about 14 years ago. And like to this day, I'm like disgusted with that fact that I did that. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, and when I wore it, it just like the little pearl fell out and it was a mess. It never kept time well. Yeah, it's just not a good experience. All right, number 3 are what we call bridge watches. Let's say that you want a Rolex Submariner so bad. Oftentimes people don't quite have the budget for the thing that they want, but maybe they have the budget for something, I don't know, 40% less. And so they will purchase that thing. A good example of this might be like a Omega Seamaster, which in its own right is a fantastic watch, but it is not the watch that you wanted to begin with. It's not the one you were dreaming about. I'm sure you've heard this feedback sentiment before. Like everyone says it, but we keep doing this stupid thing of purchasing the bridge watch, like purchasing the thing that's within reach just to like get that itch scratched. And then eventually time will just get you regretting that decision. All right, the 4th type of watch you will regret is the one that people say you need to have in a collection, but is not really a watch that's a fit for you. There are models within each brand that are sort of legendary, right? For Omega, that'd be like the Speedmaster, or for Breitling, it's the Navitimer, or for JLC, it's gonna be like the Reverso. That being said, if that watch does not speak to you, in fact, you're like really forcing it, then God, if you pull the trigger just because of that, like you're gonna end up regretting it. I'll give you an example. So everyone tells me that I need to have a G-Shock. You need the beater. You need the Casio G-Shock. It's the best possible beater that you can have. So I've owned multiple G-Shocks because people told me I had to have G-Shocks, but like I ended up wanting to wear them only so that I had to wear them because I own them, and then it became a burden. Like I have this beater watch that I'm supposed to wear when normally I might just take off a watch and be watchless for a bit. I mean, God forbid you're watchless for an hour. But like if that scenario happened, that was better than having to like strap on the G-Shock and then kind of look at it and be like, this is not really me. If people force the Rolex Submariner on you or a Patek Calatrava on you, like great, it's a fantastic watch, but if it's not a fit for your lifestyle and you and your design and the way that you look and all that sort of stuff, then just forget about it. And lastly on this list is going to be impractical watches that are above your budget. I'm putting two things together here, right? There's watches above your budget, which I think people sometimes do regret purchasing that in some sense, but it's the ones that are sort of impractical on a daily basis that I would avoid that are also expensive. Let me give you an example. There are vintage watches that I really, really want to buy, right? They just look so cool. But vintage watches, you know, they're not waterproof usually anymore. You know, you're not 100% sure if you're gonna chip the lume or the paint, or, you know, these things are kind of like falling apart in some ways. And can you really, really utilize them and wear them as you really want to? Now, if you get a vintage watch and you have clearly the means, enjoy it. Like, and then if you know, if over time that wear and tear like destroys it, you know, you lost some money, but like you got to enjoy this awesome vintage piece. On the flip side, if I got a Rolex Daytona, you know, 6263, big red, 100K watch on my wrist, and I love the design, but I just can't go anywhere without feeling like, oh, am I gonna like, that is just not a way to live. We have enough stresses in our life to add to that. It's just not worth it. It's like not worth it from a psychological standpoint because it's just a watch. These are physical items that I really should be able to take and just throw out a window and be okay with, right? If that mental headspace is beyond just enthusiasm, it's in fear, constant fear that you're gonna bang this thing and then lose all this value, you can't afford to lose that value, etc., then it's just not gonna be worth it. So I would really regret that. All right, so there's the 5 regrets. It was a lot there, but the next video is gonna be about the good things. So we're talking about bad things today, but the good things tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mark Kwok. I'll see you on the next one.